Howdy, hi, hello, everybody, and welcome back. Today, we are going to be talking about human growth and development. Actually, we're just going to be doing practice questions. I'll try to explain the answers if I know how. If I don't know how, I'm sorry, but at least you'll know the right answer because I have the key. Okay, so let's go ahead and we want this one. I want this guy. Okie dokie. So we are going to be using the NCE Hedwig book 2020 edition. So this is the book that we're using. No plagiarizing, copyright editing issues here. And let me go ahead and go down to where we were, which was index, professional ethics. I was taking the actual test. Oh, CPCE practice exam. This is also for the NCE. The only reason why I'm doing it this way is because this one is separated by sections and the other one is not separated by sections. So that's not cool. But let's go ahead and go over all these questions. Let me fix myself so that I'm on this side. Okie dokie. Annotate my little spotlight. We love this guy. Okay. So let's go ahead and begin. Starting with our first question. Self-concept. So self-concepts are an individual's perception of who they are, their ambitions, and their attributes. Yeah, and their traits as well. Stabilizations of one's self-concept happens when? So here we have first, think about your own self-concept. Like, when did you figure out who you are and what attributes and traits you have? Was it during your preschool years and you never changed after that? No, no, it wasn't. So it's not A. B is completed by early adolescence. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a young adult and I am still changing my self-concept. So that is also not true. May be influenced by cultural and family factors. Now, I know my culture and my family impacts my self-concept. I'm assuming you guys do too. So that's perhaps, and seldom stabilizes in one's lifetime. Now, I know I was saying that it's not going to do it at early development, but hopefully by the time you're an adult, you have already kind of figured out who you are. So it's not D. The answer to this one is C. Okay. Which of the following is not a neurotransmitter that facilitates messages between neurons? Now, we talk about neurotransmitters a lot because they do impact, actually, I have a list, but I don't want to get into all of that because I'd have to log into my Pinterest. I have a video on my TikTok about all the different types of neurotransmitters because I don't want to go into too much detail, but let's just cover them real quick. So dopamine, remember dopamine is like, I feel dope. I'm feeling real good right now. And this is the one that when we're talking about like addiction is being released in excessive amounts. So you feel really good and that's why your body wants more and more drugs or alcohol or whatever it is that you're addicted to. But dopamine is also released when you're with friends, when you feel good, when you're having a good time. Okay. Then we have serotonin. So serotonin, think it's like serene. You feel calm. You feel at peace. That's serotonin, acetylcholine, and then atropine. So acetylcholine is also a neurotransmitter. And atropine, I only know this because my boyfriend is a nurse, is a drug used for the heart, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So atropine is actually a drug, not a neurotransmitter. So the answer for this one would be D because it's asking which one is not a neurotransmitter. Okay, next question. The view that a child begins their development as a blank state has been identified as by John Locke as what? So the way that I think about this, and I might have an advantage because I speak Spanish, I think of the answer is A, tabula rasa. I think of like a blank rock. So like a table that's blank. I don't know why that comes to mind, but that is how I remember that term. Plasticity is like moving around, how much something can change. And then we have resiliency, which is being able to overcome something. And genotype, that is your genetic code. So you have genotype and phenotype. Genotype, think genes, that's like your um, adenine, cytosine, guanine, and uracil and thymine, versus your phenotype, which is think the pheno, the F, the PH is for like physical characteristics. So those are the physical characteristics that you have. Tell me you were a biology teacher without telling me you were a biology teacher. Okay. Next we have, according to Erikson, young adults seek close relationships with others, but fear that doing so will mean giving up their independence. Erikson called this tension what? So here we have the different stages, and I'll go ahead and share. Let me see if I can share. Pew, pew, pew. My website. Here are the different stages. So as we go through life, and I have a video on this on my TikTok as well. I'll eventually make one on here. But as we go through life, we go through all these different stages. And in order to get to the good parts of the stages, you have to overcome the parts before them, right? So when we're trying to form relationships, here we are, where we're finding love. This is in young adulthood. You're either going to find love in people you want to surround yourself with and develop intimacy, or you're going to isolate yourself and experience isolation. So intimacy versus isolation is where this is taking place. So if we go back to our question, and it's asking, where would you seek a close relationship? It is D, intimacy versus isolation. I lost my spotlight. Okay. Next one. The clinical hypothesis developed by a mental health counselor is characterized as what? So assessment testing, hold on. Okay, okie dokie. Sorry. Assessment testing is where you are administering some kind of exam or a test to an individual to figure something out, whether that be like the ways, the why sure, I can't even pronounce it. But it's testing. This is not where you're developing a hypothesis, because when you have a test and the answers are there, it's pretty easy to see what that person has, because that's what the test was designed for. So because this is us as clinicians developing a hypothesis, it is not going to be A. B is psychosocial analysis. So psychosocial, that's like the people you surround yourself with. But again, we're talking to one client. You're not talking about their social life. Okay? C, case conceptualization, sounds very familiar. I'm sure you guys do them all the time. And D, non-standardized checklists and rating scales. This is like a Likert scale. How do you feel today on a scale of 1 to 10? But that's not a hypothesis. That's just you asking a question. So for this one, the answer would be C. Okay. Which of the following is a true statement pertaining to the DSM-5? DSM-5 TR, I should say, but whatevs, we're not judging. Okay. All major categories of disorders have been renamed. That is not true. They are still the same. Now, some diagnoses have been renamed, like conversion disorder got renamed. That's the only one I can think of right now. We've also had, also like I saw one the other day that it was an intellectual disability, but they called it something different on the report from like 5 years ago. So that would make sense because the name changed. Okay. There is less emphasis on pathophysiological origins of symptoms and behaviors. No, that's not true. there's still the same amount of emphasis. Autism and Asperger's are classified under disruptive impulse control. They are not classified under that. I think they're a neurological disorder, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check. Autism. I have my DSM here. Neurodevelopmental disorder. Yeah, we're good. Neurodevelopmental. Okay, back to my screen. Where are you? I'm so sorry. Okay, here we are. Okay, so the only one that we have here that would make sense is C. The classification system has been dropped, the axial classification system. Okay. Next, we have number 7. According to behaviorists, the law of effect most nearly refers to what? So remember, behaviorists, these are people who believe in like conditioning. These are people who, let me bust it out again, any chance I can to show this off because it was so much work. Share. It's not letting me share. There you are. Okay, so let's go into behavior. So these are like your classical conditioning by Pavlov, your operant conditioning by Skinner, your Watson and Hull and Thorne-like. So all of these have to do with like cause and effect. This, let me see. The pictures are better. This unconditioned response, once we conditioned it, led to this response, right? This conditioned response to this conditioned stimulus. So this is like something is happening. Now, law of effect, I believe was Thorne. Where are you, Thorne? Thorne-like. Am I right? Yes. I love when I'm right. Okay, so law of effect is behaviors followed by a pleasant consequence are more likely to be repeated. If every day that you say good morning to people, they say good morning back and greet you with a smile, you're likely going to keep doing that every single day. So that's the law of effect. Now let's go to our answer choices. A is the hierarchy of need. That's Maslow. That has to do with your needs. That doesn't have to do with behavior. Defense mechanisms, that's Freud. Psychosexual development, also Freud, who is not a behaviorist. And lastly, we have conditioning principles, which we just talked about. That does have to do with behaviors. So the answer for this one would be D. Next question. Strong interpersonal relationships are often forged by individuals working for the same company. Not infrequently, marriages are the result of some of these relationships. The principle involved here is called what? So adaptation, that's evolutionary, that's adapting to your environment. Commitment is committing to something. Accommodation is, if we're talking about Piaget, it's like fixing your thinking to accommodate to that scenario or that new learned thing. If we're talking about accommodating, like, how else would accommodation be used? Accommodating your whatever you're doing to accommodate to another person, you're fixing that about yourself. But that has nothing to do with proximity. So that's how I remember this one. When we're talking about being around the same individuals, I remember they're proximal to one another. So hopefully that helps ring a bell to propinquity. Propinquity. I suck at saying words, but that is the correct answer, which is B. Alrighty, next question. Frequently at a mental status exam is administered to an individual seeking mental health sequences. I do sequences services. You can tell it's been a really long day. This formal assessment covers several specific areas. Which of these is not one of those areas? So I do mental status exams every single time I go to work. So I'm very familiar with the format, but for those of you who are not, the mental status exam has to do with that person, what they're currently experiencing, what's going on in their head currently, what you see, right? So sensory modem, you can see that, what they're doing, what they're feeling. Appearance and behavior, that's something you can also see. Mood and affect, that is something you can also see. Interpersonal relationships, the relationships between them and other people, that's not something you can easily see. And though you might ask about it if you're trying to get background information, that's not a part of the actual mental status exam. It might just be for like background info, depending on what you're doing that exam for. But the answer for this one is A, because it's asking which one is not a part of it. I keep losing my spotlight. Okie dokie. Next, we have Albert Bandura, social learning theory and self-efficacy, also necessary to know for like the career aspect, the career counseling aspect. They'll ask like, what did Bandura's theory in terms of like career development, what did it have to do with? And it was your self-efficacy. So this is one of the principal concepts. Self-efficacy is the belief that we can do some task or behavior. I have a very high self-efficacy. I am a firm believer that I can do anything that I set my mind to, right? So as counselors, we need to be able to empower our clients to become more self-efficacious. Which of the following is not an approach recommended by Bandura? So even if you knew nothing about Bandura before today, right? The question itself is asking you, what can we do as clinicians or therapists to make our client feel like they can do something, a task or behavior? They even helped you, like they gave you the definition here. So let's look at the answer choices. Vicarious experience. One thing you could say is like, think about what it would feel like if you wanted, like your goal is to run a 5K, right? Think about what it would feel like once you finish that 5K. What do you think is going to come to mind? What are you going to feel? And there you go. They're experiencing those good feelings of, oh my gosh, I just ran a 5K. I'm so amazing. And then that's going to cause them to become more empowered. Next one we have is modeling. I just said it myself. I have a very high self-efficacy. So if I feel really confident in myself, you know what they say, surround yourself by people you want to be like. Modeling that behavior is going to help the client see that it's okay to feel this way. And it's also okay to feel confident about yourself. Verbal persuasion. As a coach, you tell people like, you guys can do it. You can do it. Like, I believe in you. Keep trying. You can go and run another lap. Like, I believe in you. Come on, come on. Do it, do it, do it. That is verbal persuasion. So all of those three are going to make you feel real good about yourself, aka self-efficacy. But if I make you anxious in session, if I make you feel not good, are you going to feel good about yourself? The answer is no. So this one is B. Okie dokie. Next one. So the difference between fixed and variable, fixed means that like it's not going to change. It is already fixed, set in stone. We're not moving it. Variable means that it's variable. You can change it. I just realized I'm black. I'm wearing like a black. Really cool. Sorry. So here it says a professional counselor determines fees for monthly consultation rates on a job-by-job basis. So their rate is not the same every single time. So we automatically know it is not fixed. It is automatically not A, not C. It's variable. Next we have, this is an example of which of the following reinforcement schedules. So this also goes back to Pavlov and the fixed and variable rates. Should I? No, it's okay. No, it's okay. Okay. So ratio versus interval. Think of interval like time and ratio like money or quantity of numbers. So if we're talking about numbers, ratio. So the answer for this one is B, a variable ratio. I'm going to take a second to drink this. Okay, next, Piaget. We love Piaget. So Piaget studied the development of children. It goes sensory to pre to formal to post. And you'll understand. Actually, here we go again. Pew, 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 pew. Okay. Sensory to pre to post or concrete to formal. Yeah. So sensory motor, this one is they're driven by their senses. Pre-operational, it means that they are not yet fully functioning, not yet operational. Concrete is they have a solid understanding, but they are not able to think abstractly or like hypothesize per se. And then formal, you're good. You're 11 to adulthood. You're able to have mental operations. Oh, I don't really have good descriptions on here. But that's okay. I have a picture here. So you have your formal operations. Mental operations are applied to abstract ideas, logical, systematic thinking. Concrete mental operations are applied to concrete ideas. They have a master of conservation, meaning that like if you put two things in a jar from two different sizes, they can see that it's the same amount of liquid in both jars. Hierarchical classification, pre-operational development of symbolic thought, marked by irreversibility, egocentrism, and centration. And then sensory motor, coordination of sensory input and motor responses of object permanence. So that's the difference between those. Now let's go back to our question. Is it sharing? Oh, I have to press the share button. Sorry. I moved myself this way. Okay. So he identified the 4 stages, which was the following, refers to the period during which the child develops the ability to classify and serenade objects and manipulate relationships between objects despite their physical manipulation. So, like I just said, with the objects and the conservation, which one would we say that we're at? I don't know why I'm waiting for an answer. As if there's somebody here. Okay, so sensory motor was the first one. Then we have pre-operational and then concrete, which is where they are able to tell the difference. So the answer to this one would be A. Okie dokie. No single theory explains how women develop, unfortunately. However, there are a number of concepts attributable to women in the process of development. Which of these are not representative to a woman's development? This one, I honestly did not know anything about, but I guessed, and I guessed correctly because I used, I guess, my own experience. I'm a caregiver, and I'm very social, so that would represent me and my womanhood. I love to have relationships and other oriented, whatever that means. So check. Do I communicate and connect with others all the time? Am I self-absorbed and crave powered networks? No. So the answer is D. That is literally how I answered this question, and I got it right. Yay. Okay, continuing. Erikson called the last stage of his theory in human development integrity versus despair. This is where you're looking back on your life and you're figuring out, did I live my life with integrity? Did I do everything I could have done and fulfilled all my roles? And if you did, then you're going to feel like, yes, I did. And if you didn't, you're going to feel despair. No, I didn't. So, a person's challenge in this stage is to achieve acceptance of the finality of life. Erikson postulated that such acceptance could be achieved only if the person had done what? So remember, we have to go through all the stages that I mentioned earlier. So successfully met the challenges of the previous stages, Well, you're going to face challenges at every stage, but if you don't meet one, does that automatically mean that you didn't meet any of them? Does that automatically mean that your life sucked and you are filled with despair? No, there are roadblocks in life and you're going to get through them. So the answer is not A. B, reached an economic position wherein the person did not need to worry about having good living conditions. That doesn't sound very psychosocial. Remember, Erikson, his stages were called the psychosocial stages of development. So they have a lot to do with other people and how you interact and the relationships that you build. So no, it's not B. Has nothing to do with money. C, accepted the accomplishment of various life roles the individual had filled in life. So are you gonna feel integrity if you look back and you are like, wow, I did have intimacy. Wow, I did have generativity. Wow, I did have this. And you're accepting all of the good stuff in your life, then voila, you will feel integrity. You'll feel good. So the answer is C. Not even going to go into the next one. Next, we have Freud. So Freud, very, very controversial because of his psychosexual stages of development. Not psychosocial, that's Erikson, psychosexual stages of development. So he says you're going to go through all these different stages, and it's old ASS people love gold. So oral, anal, genital, phallic, and sorry, genital's the last one. Let me old, which is oral. A is anal. P is phallic. Old ass people love. L is latent. Gold is genital. Did I say genital twice? I don't think I did. But oral, I'm not going to say it again. Okay, so oral has to do with your mouth, anal has to do with your anus, genital has to do with your private parts, and phallic has to do with exploring your private parts. So a prominent theory of psychosexual development is that of Freud. In one of his 5 stages, he said that the child is attracted to the opposite sex of the parent. This attraction occurs during what stage? So for this one, think of like, when are you exploring your private parts? That's when you start to feel those good feelings, right? Also, where the superego develops, this is your phallic stage. You're experiencing that stuff down there. Okay, so that was A. 16, I'm trying to hurry up. Counselor is seeing a Latina client for the first time, and she is experiencing anxiety and distress that her family members are scattered through several states in order to have jobs. The counselor determines that the client is an illegal immigrant and is considering what course of action he should take. The counselor chooses not to report this to the client to authority, which is consistent with Kohlberg's level of what? So Kohlberg had this theory of moral development, and he said you have like you have 3 main, like 3 big groups, and then within each group you have 2 sub stages. So you have like your pre, your conventional, and your post. Your post conventional is the highest level of things, so you're able to like set aside what the law says and have your own moral ground. So here he knows that it's illegal, but hello, I have a moral ground, so I'm in my post era. So that one is B, and I'm trying to hurry. Okay. Gloria visits her college counseling center because she has difficulty going to sleep and staying asleep. She finds out that 5% of the students at the college have a similar complaint. This is known as a blank of sleep problems. So etiology is like where stuff comes from. Incidence is like, and this is happening once, like it was an incident that happened. Prognosis is like how you think that a person is going to function after. Like you do that a lot with the mental status exam, or whenever you're doing an intake, you say like, this person has a good prognosis, like they're going to succeed in life and be really healthy and good, or this person has a poor prognosis, they really need help, yada, yada, yada. Prevalence is the answer. B. Next one. A school counselor has met several times over the year with the 10th grader who's having difficulty with authority figures. At a session which includes the student's mother, the counselor notices that they're exhibiting childlike behaviors. In terms of defense mechanisms, this behavior can be labeled as what? So, defense mechanisms, there's a lot of them. Freud came up with the first set, and then his daughter, Anna, came up with even more. I'll go through these really, really quickly. So first one, displacement. You're displacing your anger or something onto somebody else who's like a weaker target. So let's say you get yelled at by your boss, but you can't yell back to your boss, so you go home and yell to your wife. That's displacement. You're displacing your feelings. Reaction formation is you're reacting in the opposite way that you're supposed to because something happened that was like super traumatizing. Denial is you're denying that it happened. This is conscious, you're consciously doing it. And then regression is reverting back to a stage in life that you already passed, like acting like a little child, even though you're already in 10th grade. Okay? So the answer for this one was regression. 19. One of the early theorists viewed human development from an ecological perspective. This suggests that the system in which the individual finds himself or herself is critical to the developmental process. This theorist was who? So the answer to this one is A. Bronfenberger or whatever. William Perry was the dualism, Skinner, behaviorism. Havinghurst, can't even think, but I know that Rothenberg, whatever his name is, had to do with ecological perspectives. And then lastly, Maslow's theory that people's behaviors are primarily directed by what? So Maslow was the pyramid that you have to go through each one based on your needs. So this was a need gratification. The answer is C. Yay, we're done. That took so long. I'm so sorry. But yeah, I hope you guys learned something about human growth and development. And tuning out. Goodbye, everyone. Have a wonderful day.